Hey guys, welcome to Rogue Vault, and this is yet another new tutorial on Kali Linux 101 how-to series. And in this tutorial I'm going to quickly introduce you guys to proxy chains on Kali Linux. So proxy chain is nothing but we use proxy chains to be anonymous on the internet whenever you're browsing or whenever your application is accessing any service or servers on the internet. So by default in Kali Linux, proxy chains are installed and available. It is just that we need to configure them to work according to our requirement. And also proxy chains, with proxy chains we are going to also use Tor service so that we can completely make ourselves anonymous, and all the required details and steps and procedures are given in the description of this video. Please do have a look at the description and follow the steps if you are unable to do it over the video. I've given all the steps on the description, as well as if you have any issues configuring proxy chains on Kali Linux or you encounter any issue, please do leave a comment so that I can connect with you and I can get you and your problems resolved quickly. And now that we have a basic idea about what we're going to do on this tutorial, I'm going to quickly log into my Kali box and I'm going to show you guys how we're going to do and how we're going to configure proxy chains. So before that, there are some prerequisites. So let me show you quickly one by one. So I'm going to open a new terminal, and I'm definitely going to split this terminal in a vertical way so that I can simultaneously run multiple commands, and this way you guys can quickly have a look at what is the difference over here and on the other one. So let me quickly run through the command ifconfig because I need to check what's the IP address. So now I have my ETH0, that is where exactly I'm connected, and this is my IP address 192.168.0.161. So I have a valid IP address, and quickly what I need to do is browse the internet. To do that, I'll enter Firefox. Sorry, so this is spelling mistake. So I hit the Firefox, and the Firefox browser should open up anytime quickly. And then in Firefox we need to check our public IP address, and also we need to check about the DNS address. So all you need to do is go to this browser and go to google.com, and then when you have the google.com available, you can just type what is my IP. So this is going to be the public IP address, and at the same time I'm also going to go to DNS Leak test. So I'm gonna click DNS Leak test here. This is just quickly have a check that what is the DNS address I'm using. So currently I've spoofed my IP and DNS, so I've connected to a VPN service on my host machine. So I'm using Kali Linux on a virtual machine. So my host machine is configured to use an Indian DNS server. So I'm using the Indian DNS server over here. So I'll do a standard test here. So if you do a standard test, you'll exactly know the DNS configs over here. Right, so that's something here. So Surat, India. So this is, I suppose, my VPN service provider's base server, and this is the Google IP. So also, if you want to do, you can do an extended test where it will try to fetch more information. So the most common thing for me is this is the IP address I require the most. So, and then in the DNS just as a test still going on. So let's see. So you can actually open any other website, for an example like this, um, my IP info. So it will quickly give you IP info, something like this, and the DNS is still running, so it's probably finding up all the. So okay, so that's exactly what we got again. So you can see this is what is shown now for me. So after proxy chain eventually, and the logical part over here is that this IP address and this has to change. So what I will do is I'll again quickly go back, minimize this. I'll just have this noted. So I'll be using this IP address. This is my IPv4 address. So that's my IPv4 address. Copy that. Right, so Firefox is closed. I'll just paste it over here. That's okay. I'll open another terminal. So let's have our local IP stuck over here, and I have another terminal which has come up. I'll zoom in. So I have this complaint from several people that you're not able to see my commands when I enter. So I'm just zooming in so that you guys can have a quick view of it. So Firefox, and I'll minimize this. So the Firefox open. What is my IP? And DNS leak test. And I have the IP. So I'm just minimizing this so that you guys can quickly have a look at this later and compare it. So minimize this. Now let's quickly get on to the next part, that is configuring the proxy chains. So to configure proxy chain, the first thing you have to do is just get into the terminal, and the proxy chain file can be found in etc folder. So I'll give you a graphical view of it as well. So open your folder, and you should be on the file system. So on the file system you need to get into the etc folder. So let me zoom in. So this is the etc folder. Get inside the etc folder, and you should have a file called Proxy Change. So just go down, it's under file category. So you should be able to find a proxy chain file here. This is the file proxychains.conf. So you can open with any of the editor by default. So I'm just opening it with my mousepad editor. So you can see this is the proxy chain file. So the same can be also accessed via command prompt. So I mean the terminal. So that's a default or fundamental of Kali Linux, that we work on the terminal and the command mode. So let's quickly go and access the configuration file. So you need to type cd space etcs, then followed by proxy chains. Oh, I'm sorry. So I shouldn't be getting into the etc. So It was my mistake. It's not CD which you're going to use. We're going to use Nano editor because we have to edit the configuration file. So it's not that I have to get into the etc folder from here. So what I'll do is I'll quickly clear and use Nano editor. So Nano is the default editor which comes with Kali Linux, so I use Nano, and then space followed by etc folder is where the proxy chain .conf file is available. So hit enter. So now you can see that the Nano editor has opened the proxy chain, right? So over here, this is the default configuration page of Proxy Change, and pretty much very much important for our configuration. So first let's start with this. So this is the version I'm using, proxy version 3.1, and all you see here, if you are pretty much good at programming language or programming, all you can know this is that the hash represents that the configuration set. So if the hash is removed, it means this is configured. Hash is pasted, eventually it is not. So this is the proxy type which the proxy change uses. HTTP is the default proxy for browsers, and SOC4 was one old proxy system. It was pretty much coverting the communication, but then SOC5 is the latest tunneling system or proxy system, which actually is used in the latest Tor relay systems. So this is what we're going to use, SOC4 to SOC5 and HTTP as well, the combination. So there are a few options here like dynamic chain, strict chain, and random chain. So these are the three proxy chain options. So for now there is a strict chain enabled and dynamic chain is disabled. As you can see, there is a hash over here, and this is highlighted and this is not. So what does a dynamic chain do is that it dynamically runs through all the available proxy nodes, and it bounces the traffic from one particular node to other particular node automatically. And if suppose the proxy is unavailable and it's dead, it automatically switches to a new proxy. It means that even if there is a dead proxy, the dynamic chain configuration will automatically dynamically select the available and live proxy. So you can actually see the same. I mean, it's written over here, and as I said, like dead proxies are skipped. So whenever in the proxy list there is a dead proxy, the dynamic chain configuration will skip that dead proxy and it will jump to a proxy which is live. So the next one is the strict chain. Strict chain is that it follows the connection in a sequence. So the problem with strict chain is that if there is a dead proxy, the strict chain will not skip that dead proxy and it will try to connect to that dead proxy at all time. So the problem here is, if you are using a strict chain, you need to ensure that you have all the VPNs or all the end nodes or proxy nodes configured and live. If not, then you will have interruption in your proxy service. So normally we'll not be using strict chains because it's really a problem for us. And if you want to scroll down, you can use your mouse up or down arrow. So I'll be using I'm sorry, not the mouse, the keyboard up arrow or down arrow. Or you can also use the mouse scroll, but then to make it simple, use the keyboard up or down arrow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable strict chain by just adding a hash in front of it, and I'm going to enable dynamic chain because I want it to be dynamic. And when it comes to the random chain, so you can actually read what exactly the random chain does is each connection will be done via random proxy or proxy chain, and this is a combination of dynamic. So it just does a test and then it actually bounces back the traffic back and forth. So normally we don't use random chains. We try to stick with dynamic chains or strict chains when we are having a manual configuration set. So now that I've enabled this dynamic chain, now I'll just scroll down, and this is going to make a big difference over here, the proxy DNS request. So what you can see over here is a proxy DNS request, no leak for DNS data. So why did I initially show you the DNS leak is that because if you can see for this particular IP address, the public IP address over here, there will be an associated DNS server. So this is a very fundamental of networking, that if you have an IP address, it will also have a DNS address by which the name resolution actually happens. So imagine I'm using a proxy chain and jumping my connection from one node to another node from different part of the world. For an example, now I'm connected to a proxy node in India, and the next jump will be in Germany, and the next jump after that would be Philippines. So I keep jumping, but the problem is, if suppose you are jumping with different public IP address, your communication is bounced through several public IP addresses. You should also ensure that your DNS also is getting bounced, with the public IP address, or the communication bounces the IP and the DNS together. In case if you're not doing that, and in case you are leaking DNS, it means that the IP is bouncing and DNS is static. It means the DNS server on which I'm currently connected to will be displayed on the other end. It means you will have a German IP address, but still you will have an Indian DNS server. And if suppose you're bouncing after 2 or 3 minutes, if you're bouncing to a UK based IP system, IP address, you'll still have an Indian DNS server. That means that your IP address is faked and your DNS is still, the actual from where it belongs to, where you're browsing or where you're connected via VPN belongs to. So the question here is, does this happen? Sometimes or all the time it does happen. So I can see this IP address. What I can see over here is my public IP address. When it changes, even the DNS address should also change. So with that IP address, you can also go to Google and search for what is my DNS address, and probably you can select a few links over here which will actually show you what is your DNS address. So if you can see this, I'm going to click on what is my DNS over here, and it will display my IP address and my DNS address. So this is the DNS address. Alright, this is the IP address which you can actually see on both over here, the DNS and the IP. This is the IP. So this is the DNS server, and this is so this is the Google DNS server which I'm browsing via, and this is another DNS server which I'm actually using. So that's my DNS server address. So I'll keep this also aside so that we will be able to eventually get more insight on this particular information. So this is one DNS address, 111.90.168, and here also you have the same. So let's get back to the proxy chains configuration. Now that there is this option which I was talking about is the DNS. So you don't have to make any changes anywhere else, but then there is a thing called proxy DNS server request. This is actually disabled, and I would rather suggest to enable this so that there's no proxy DNS leak. And then coming down in the proxy format, so this is the format by which you enter the proxy information below. So in the proxy list, so you'll have the SOC or the protocol, then the IP, the port number. Right, this is how it is written as an example. So you can go down over here, this is where you have to write this manually. So proxy list, so you have the example already. So already the SOC 4 is configured, but then the problem here is we are not just going to use SOC 4. Sometimes we'll also, or most of the time we'll also use SOC 5. So we need to have that as entered as well. So enter SOC 5, then followed by space 127, that's a loopback address, and then followed by a space, and give the port number 9050, which is the Tor port number. So you can see this is the port number of Tor, so I'm giving the port number. So these are the configurational change you have to make. First is you enter this info SOC 5, then you scroll up and you'll also have this proxy DNS request enable, and then you will enable the dynamic chain, and you will disable the static and the random chain. So once this is done, you have to write all the settings. So to write the settings, all you need to do is press Ctrl and O and hit enter to save the change. It's written. Now Ctrl X to exit. So now we are out of the proxy chain configuration. Now let's proceed with the next stage. So on the next step is that I can collapse this now, I suppose, and I'll have one terminal. Okay, so once that configuration is done, the next stage, you have to check for the Tor service. So now the proxy chain configuration is done. The next thing which we have to do is check for the Tor. So to check for the Tor, you can enter this service Tor status. So service space Tor space status. So as you can see here, unit Tor service could not be found. So it means that we need to install the Tor service manually. To install the Tor service manually, apt-get install Tor. So this is the command you have to enter to install the Tor. Do you want to continue? Is enter. So you can see that this is a command which we used, apt-get install Tor. So all these commands will be available in the video description. You guys can have a look at it as well. So it's installing the Tor service. It will take quite some time to get the complete package unpacked and installed. So we need to probably hold on for a few seconds before this Tor service is fully ready. Alright, so I suppose the Tor service is installed. So I'll clear the screen now. So now that the Tor service is installed, we need to check the status for the Tor service. To do that, enter service Tor status. Alright, so the Tor service was installed. This is what you can see, because last time it was not found. So now the Tor service is available, but if you can see that it's dead, it means it's not started. So you need to start the Tor service. So let's start the Tor service. To start the Tor service, enter service Tor start. Right, so it should be started. To check, again the command is service Tor status, and now you can actually see Tor service is active. Right, so it's active now. It means that we can go ahead and work further. So Tor service is started. Let me clear this screen. So to quickly check further the proxy chain and it's working, just type proxy chains space firefox space I'll probably use google.com. Right, so you'll eventually find a lot of services running in the background. So now this is a new tab which is open in Google, and probably I need to check. We need to check over here what it has to give us. So we can see now that, so when you type this proxy change firefox duckduckgo, you will have something started in the back. So you're actually connecting to different proxy chains over here. and before that it didn't work because I didn't close the browser. I just did close the browser, and the proxy chain took over. So you have to close the browser before you activate the proxy chain, and then you work on it. So now that the session has started, so I'll do one thing. I'll type google.com. So whenever I type anything on the background, you can see the proxy, how it is trying to bounce the connection. And the first thing you'll see in the Google itself, that the change in language. So this is not the language which I was initially getting. So let's see what is my IP. So I need to check whether my public IP address has been changed. So if you can see the public IP, initially my public IP was 103.74.141 and 95. This is my public IP. So let me zoom in so you guys can have a look at it. So this was the DNS server, and this was the public IP. So let's quickly check what is the public IP, and it's obvious that you'll have a bit of slowness when you're bouncing your connection into different places. So let's hold on for some time until this completely loads. Right, so the result has come. This is the public IP address which I have received now. So I'll give you a quick comparison over here. So this is the public address currently, and this used to be the public IP address before. So there you can see the difference. And how about the DNS server? So we can also do the same. You can go to google.com, and we can check for the DNS. What is my DNS address? And probably can scroll through and find some suitable website which can actually fetch you this DNS address. So this is the same website we used in the initial stage. So let's see what is the DNS address, if there is any change in the DNS server address as well. So again, there will be a bit of slowness issue when you are bouncing your connection via proxy chains. It's pretty much understandable. So you need to have yourself waiting for the test results to pop up. If you have a pretty much good internet connection, then it's obvious that you'll be quicker. And now that I have connected via a VPN through proxy chains to internet, so I'll have a pretty much delay when it comes to fetching information from internet. But when you guys are using only proxy chain and you're not using a VPN connection in the back on the base OS, so it'll be more faster compared to what it is the scenario now. So you can see here the app has loaded, and this is the DNS server which I have got now. So you can see this is the IP 128 starts with, and the DNS server is 192.221.146.132. So this is the second set of DNS server address which I have got. So this eventually means that now we are officially on a proxy system. This is what it all means. So I'll save this on the Nano, so that in case if you guys want to do something about bringing up second bounce back or a second bounce, then it will be very useful for you guys. So let me paste this IP, and there you go with the DNS address. So I'll say DNS IP. Right, I'll just close this browser now, so I can close the tabs now you can see the proxy chain has stopped running. So these are the background proxy service or bounce connections. Okay, let's again do the same for proxy chains, and this time I'll go with Firefox and google.com. So in case if you're lucky enough, there will be a proxy switchover. That means next time when you try and access the same website or what is my IP, you might be in a different domain. Let's see what is my, so you can now itself you can see that the language has changed. So what is my IP and what is my IP? So I need to wait for this. Okay, there you go. So this is my IP now. So you can see in the background proxy chains working, connecting, and bouncing your connections. So go back over here. This was my IP address, and now the IP address has changed to 85.127. So it bounces your connection regularly. So your IP address now has changed. The same way, what is my DNS address? So you have to even search for the DNS, because this was the DNS server for us, and let's see what is the DNS server now. So it is obvious that when the IP changes, the DNS also changes. That is the fundamental rule for the configuration which we have made on the proxy chain configuration. So let's hold on for this to load. So the DNS has loaded, and now you can see this is the DNS server address. So this was my DNS, and now it is changed to a different DNS. So every time we bounce our IP, the DNS also bounce. That is the ultimate goal of we doing a configuration change of DNS leak. So this way now you can safely browse and you can maintain anonymity on the internet. So this is not all. You can also do several other stuff, like if you want to route an application, you can also route an application via the proxy chains. All you need to do is type proxy chains and followed by the application. So if I have to close this, and you can probably see we are out of the proxy now. So if you want to do anything else, like an application, if you want to run through, so proxy chains, then nmap for an example, and you can type the IP address and you can run the nmap application via proxy chain, so that when you scan and on the other end, the if suppose you're scanning a big enterprise, the enterprise is not aware that who exactly from which source IP is scanning. You can spoof your IP and you can scan and you can do your task very easily and also anonymously. So this was something about proxy chains, and which I want to introduce you guys. So please do not use this proxy chain or any of these configurations for any offensive purposes. Please maintain a distance from using it for illegal purposes, because it will land you up into illegal consequences. So this video is recorded for only training and educational purposes, and I don't take any anything of what your activities are. I am not responsible for that as well. So please do maintain strict guidelines when you are actually using this, and use it on your lab environment. If you're doing on a live environment, make sure that you do it on a very neat way and you don't exploit any other website just by using these skills. So that will be all for this tutorial on Kali Linux 101 how-to series, and I'll come back with another tutorial on Kali Linux 101 or penetration testing series very shortly. So this is Rogue World signing off. Take care.